They say if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Well, let's say you did. Life gave you lemons and you made the lemonade. You opened a lemonade stand and it was very successful. You were having a pretty awesome life. But then a meteor came and pulverized your lemonade stand into fine grains of dust. Not a remnant of it left. You might be asking yourself, what now? What happens when things don't go according to plan? Hi everyone, welcome back to Tea with Bree. Welcome to my cozy room. We've got the candles lit, we've got our tea on. I have a lemon ginger tea and I've literally been letting it sit so long that it is like ice cold. Delicious. The thing about me is I will let the tea go cold, but never the gas. So today we're talking about starting over. I think this is a super applicable and interesting topic to so many people today. I think COVID for a lot of people felt a bit like a restart or a start over. And I think we probably encounter many different points in time in our lives where we do kind of have to pick it all up and start again. The lemonade stand was absolutely exploded beyond our wildest imaginings. The lemons are gone. We're asking ourselves, literally, what now? Well, today I got some tips, I've got some tricks, I've got some personal anecdotes of my own starting over stories. And I really just want to offer a little bit of encouragement to people that if life has kind of taken away your lemons, here's a little bit of help on what to do next. Okay, so I've had a pretty personal story of starting over recently. It started about last year. Without getting into like all of the graphic details, basically I started to get pretty sick last year. And up to that point, before I'd started feeling sick, I had a really great relationship with my partner. I had a good group of friends. I had a job that I actually really enjoyed. And then out of the blue, something happened and my health just kind of took a large nosedive. And it was kind of like my life before that point and then my life after that point were almost like unrecognizable from each other. I used to really enjoy surfing and rock climbing, and I'd work out at the gym and lift lots of weights, and it was like all of a sudden I couldn't do any of that stuff anymore. My job, it became impossible to work at my job because the staring at the computer screen was I just like wasn't able to do it anymore. And obviously that put a lot of strain on my relationship. The financial situation became difficult because I suddenly wasn't able to work anymore, and I had so much uncertainty around when I would be able to or what I would even be able to do. So needless to say, this was a huge starting over point for me. I know this isn't the starting over point that everybody has, but for me, this was incredibly difficult. I felt like I had to reinvent myself. Like I couldn't enjoy the same hobbies. I couldn't do the same job. I couldn't even eat the same foods that I'd been eating before. It was like everything had to change. And a lot of that was really brutal to navigate, and I do not wish it on anyone. However, there was a lot of incredibly enlightening things that I learned during this transitory period, and a lot of things that now that I'm about a year out from it, still having issues, but like things have obviously improved. And there's just a lot of things that I now look back and appreciate about this time. And a lot of things that I think I did well during that transition that allowed me to essentially not just like crumble to the ground when basically all the things that I loved and enjoyed kind of felt like they were taken away from me at once. So if you relate to any part of this story, if you're in your own starting over journey right now, honey, I just want to tell you, don't lose hope. We still have many more Beyonce albums to look forward to. We still have many more Taylor Swift albums to look forward to. There are still things to look forward to. There are still ways to rebuild your lemonade stand, even though it might not look the same as it did before. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of starting over. Starting over can happen, can hit us literally at any time of life. You can be 20 and feel like you just failed out of college and you have to start over. You can have to move back in with your parents and feel like you're starting over. You can have a kid and all of a sudden you don't recognize your body or the things that it can do or the amount of time that you suddenly don't have. That can feel like starting over, losing a job, moving, losing a relationship. All of these things kind of reset our brains in a way and force us to deal with a tidal wave of change all at once. Regardless of whether the starting over happened to you, kind of like it did with my illness, or if you chose the starting over, maybe you were in a relationship that was really toxic and you decided to leave. Regardless of whether you chose your change or whether your change was put on you, I think there are a lot of kind of mindsets and anxiety spirals that we all get into when confronted with what might feel like a fearful or what might feel like a fresh start. The first big one is fear of the unknown. I think for my personal illness situation, this was a huge fear for me because I didn't know how long I wouldn't be able to enjoy the activities that I did before or work at my job. Like, I didn't know how long it would last. And I think for a lot of us, like if you're moving or if you're having a lot of financial insecurity, there's this fear of the unknown of like, I don't know how long I'm gonna have to navigate this, how long until things feel better, basically. That can be super daunting. And I see you. Another big fear is like the fear of wasted time. Maybe you've decided to go back to school in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s, and there's this fear that, is this the right decision? Like, am I just wasting my time, pursuing culinary school or art school or going back to law school or whatever it may be? It's scary to invest time into something, even if it's yourself, and not be guaranteed that there will be a payoff. There's obviously the fear of failure, right? If you're starting a new business or starting a new life in a new city, there's a fear that it will all crumble, that you will fail. Maybe you failed before and you're so frightened that if you have to start over again, that the same failure is just going to be repeating. It's just going to be a cycle. There's also a fear of judgment. Maybe you do want to go back to school and maybe you do want to become a chef, and there can be a lot of pressure from your family, from your friends, from partners, from whoever, telling you that like this is a terrible idea and you absolutely should not do it. A lot of the fears around starting over boil down to the fear of like losing control or having lost control over things. I think a lot of the fears about starting over kind of boil down to this facade of having control over our lives kind of cracking and breaking away. It's like there's this curtain that we have when things are familiar. And when things are familiar and you're going to the same job and you're coming home to the same family and you're living in the same city you always have, you feel more in control of your life because you know that if you say this to your boss, you're going to get this kind of reaction. Or if you go to the grocery store at this time of day, like this many people will be there and you'll be able to get in and out at this time. Or if you're coming home to the same partner, you know that he'll make you dinner or he'll say this and you'll say that. It's just very familiar, and the familiar is comfortable and also allows us to feel like we're more in control of our own lives. But we're not, sweeties. I mean, the health struggles that I went through showed me this truly more than anything, that I can eat as healthy as I want. I can get 9 hours of sleep every night. I can exercise all the time, but it truly doesn't matter sometimes. Like, things are going to happen to you that are completely out of your control, and also reveal how little control we really have over our own lives. So I think to me that felt comforting in a way, that this fear of the unknown is really something that plagues everybody. It's just people who are surrounded by these more familiar things are able to ignore that they don't have control over their own lives. It's only at these specific points in life where we realize how little control we have and how scary the unknown can be. You might be like, okay, I'm having to start over and I know why it's scary and I know why it's happening, but like literally what now? Let's get into a little bit of inspiration. First, some like personal inspo would be both of my grandmothers had to start over in their 30s when they came to the US. One of them didn't speak any English. One of them had just recently been left by her husband and she had a young kid, my dad. These women were incredibly resilient in the way that they embraced change and embraced their fresh start. There's an aspect of being more successful in your fresh start, in your start over. If you accept that, as bad as things might look, there probably is also some good and some positive that will come from it. With my health situation, this was very difficult for me to believe because I really liked my life the way it was before. But having to start over was kind of like this wake-up call. I had to really think about like why I was doing the things that I was doing and what was really important. So there's an aspect of that is exciting. Also, like speaking of a fresh career start, my mom had always kind of talked to me when I was younger about maybe writing a book one day. And I was obviously super excited about this. I love writing. I thought it'd be amazing if she did this. In her like 50s and 60s, she doesn't look a day over 49, sweeties, but she pursued this and she started writing, and it was so exciting and inspirational to me. Like sometimes we feel like accomplishments don't exist if they're not happening when we're in our 20s. Like if I don't publish a book by 25, I'm a failure. These are real thoughts that I thought in my brain, okay? Ridiculous. But if you're having to start over and you're older, like it's not a death sentence for you. There's still so much in life that you can accomplish. You can start that book whenever. And publishing it by 25 doesn't make you any better or worse than anyone else. Let's talk about Vera Wang. She was a figure skater at one point. She was a journalist at one point. And then she decided, I really am interested in fashion. I really want to pursue this. We've probably all heard of Vera Wang today. And she made herself extraordinarily successful in her 40s, starting this fashion career. And so if you're in your 40s changing your career right now, it's looking good for you, sweetie. You also have Julia Child, who didn't even learn to cook until she was in her 30s. And then her start over is just deciding that she really wanted to pursue that as a career, and she really wanted to teach people the art of French cooking. So her book, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, wasn't even published till she was nearly 50 years old. I say again, it's never too late to start over, and it's never too late to do the things that you want to do. Alan Rickman, our very favorite Severus Snape, who passed away not so long ago, but he didn't get his first movie role till he was 46, okay? Let's talk about Diana Nyad. I think Netflix recently had a movie come out about her, but basically she tried to swim from Cuba to Florida quite a few times in her 20s and failed. And she kind of set that aside, went on with life, yada, yada, yada. And then in her 60s, sweetie, she decided, no, it's not over for me. She wanted a fresh start, a fresh chance at this distance that no woman had ever swam. And she obviously did it. 110 miles, we must applaud. So if you're at that point in your life where you've either chosen to start over or life has forced you to start over, regardless, let's talk about some tips and tricks for navigating this season and making the most of it. First of all, self-assessment. I think this was extremely important for me. There was a lot of the times when I was just so sick that I kind of lost the forest for the trees. Like I couldn't see up, I couldn't see down, I couldn't see anything but right in front of me. And it was very valuable in that time to think about my life and the course of my life. I'd been on this train and it was comfortable and it was familiar, but then the train had completely gone off the tracks. I can't get back on the same train. It's gone off the tracks. But there are now other paths that I can take. What do I really care about? What do I really want in life? What's really important to me? Who's really important to me? Reviewing these things in your mind, it's a gift. It's something that people don't do very often. And that's why they have giant midlife crises because they never took time to get off the train and they never took time to reflect on the things that they want, things that are important to them. So as hard as your start over may be, there is a gift in reassessing the things that you want in life before it's too late. I would say another huge one is setting goals and celebrating the small wins of those goals along the way. It's great to have big goals, like you want to open a restaurant and you want it to win a Michelin star. That's amazing, honey. However, you're not there yet. So what are the small actionable goals that will allow you to feel like you're getting closer to your goal, that will keep you on track, but will also keep you excited about the progress that you're making? When I first got sick, after I kind of learned what had happened and what I was dealing with health-wise, I set a goal to walk across the state of California. I live in California, and no, I wasn't gonna actually walk across the state of California. Y'all, I was way too sick for that. But walking was pretty much the one exercise that I had left that didn't make me feel worse. And so I would just get up and I would walk a little bit every day and I would track my miles. It wasn't fast, I wasn't breaking any speed records, but it was something that got me out of bed and got me feeling accomplished. And sometimes when life just presses that, restart button, you just need something to keep you going for a while and to keep you optimistic. For me, that was it. So find your small goals that, again, lead to that bigger goal. My bigger goal was feeling healthy, and I think it helped. Another important one is building a support system. Fresh starts are scary and daunting, and having support is critical. Now, if you just moved to a new place and you have no friends, or you've just gotten out of a really difficult relationship and maybe they took all your friends, you lost all the friends at the demise of the relationship, there's many different reasons that your support network can be taken away from you. But there's lots of ways to rebuild that. First of all, a therapist can always be key. I know not everyone can afford it, but even some online therapist options are a lot cheaper now. And it's not like you have to go every week. It can be something you go to only once a month. But that can be really helpful when you're navigating a fresh start. I was lucky enough that I could afford to go to a therapist during my health stuff, and it was critical. Because sometimes I was just spiraling and this girl's like, girl, you're okay. And I was like, I'm okay. So that can be one part of it. Two, there's lots of oftentimes very cheap to free exercise classes at your local rec centers. That's a great way to meet people. I know that our local rec center, I think it's actually through the Parks and Rec department, has different classes that are very cheap to free, like pottery, all these things. You just have to sign up. The summer session's coming up. You might be able to sign up. That's another great way to make friends and build up your support network. If you already have an okay support network, remind these people that you are going through a hard time and be specific about the things that you need. For me, I wasn't feeling very well. I needed people to come over and hang out with me, and I needed it to be for not very long because I couldn't handle it for very long. So be specific about your needs when you do have your support network so that people feel like they can support you and they aren't just guessing and feeling around in the dark. Another thing I'll say is you're gonna need to be flexible when you're starting over. Not literally, sweetie, unless you're gonna become a gymnast. I mean figuratively. Life is still gonna throw things at you that are completely unplanned. Even if your whole lemonade stand has just blown up, that doesn't mean there's not going to be other curveballs ahead in the future. It's important to kind of try to build a mental resiliency and to have these, short and long-term goals to keep you focused. So even if you have a curveball, even if you have to deviate from the path a little bit, you still have a bigger picture in mind and you don't give up at the first signs of adversity. Because regardless of whether you're having a fresh start, an old start, or just going on same old, life is gonna throw some things your way. And just be prepared to deviate a little bit. Recognize that deviation from the path is not an abandonment of the path. The next thing I want to bring up is that Rome wasn't built in a day, sweetie, and neither was all those other cities. Oftentimes, real change takes a lot of time. Whether you're trying to change something in yourself, maybe you got out of a relationship and you recognize there's a lot of things you want to do differently. Maybe you want a different career, you need to train for it. Regardless of what it is, change and betterment takes a lot of time. Even for my health, it was difficult to accept that it was going to take a long time to figure out the right medication and the right doctors. Like, these things just take time. The important thing is to remind yourself that they take time and have other people in your life who encourage you and cheer you on and celebrate your small wins. Like I said before, it is a long road. It's a marathon, not a sprint. My last tip would be accepting that there is a degree of uncertainty with starting over, accepting that you don't know what the future will look like or when it will start to resemble what you want it to look like. The future for everybody on this planet Earth right now is completely unknown. It's only when you're starting over, you're much more acutely aware of how unknown and uncertain the future is. Recognize that you're just in the same boat as literally the whole entire rest of humanity, but it's also fine to paint a picture of what you would like, where you want to go. So my main message to you today, if we were sitting at coffee, would be like, it's gonna be okay. It would be to remind yourself that how you're feeling right now in this moment is not forever. When I was really sick early on, I couldn't get it out of my mind that I wasn't always gonna feel like this. So if you're just going through like a relationship ending or a really bad sickness like I went through, or you lost your job, like how you're feeling right now and your circumstances right now are not going to last forever. Recognizing that these things are ephemeral, right? The sun will come out tomorrow. We just don't know when tomorrow is. So anyway, if life has really taken a shit all over your plans, I can relate. I'm here. Let's talk about it in the comments below. But yeah, I hope you found some of this useful. I hope that in your own journey of starting over, that you embrace it and recognize that you're not alone in it. That's all I got for today. See you next week.